Hopefully this works. Tried to do this one. Well, I did do this live the other day, but for some reason when I've gone back on, when I go into my videos on YouTube, it's in the live streams, exactly the same thumbnail and title and everything, metadata. It's on processing, uploading, processing. I'm like, no idea. So I'm gonna obviously do it again now. Now, what I would say is the other day I felt really, really into the topic and really on form. I was in a really good sort of flow state with that topic about spring and taking the opportunity of spring. And I'm not sure what's going on now. So I'm going to try and do this, but it probably won't be as good as the original, but here goes. So, what do we mean by spring? You know, take advantage of the spring. Spring is coming. Well, I noticed it the other day. I just thought, sat outside, I think it was Wednesday. I thought, oh, it's good weather. Everything's very nice. Just things seem to be getting brighter. And what you notice is, I think it started happening about 2 weeks ago. It just feels like the days are getting lighter, right? Every day from now until the summer solstice, from now until the summer solstice, which is in round about, is it 26th of June or something like this? 23rd or 26th of June. It gets 1 minute lighter every day. So from now, you get 1 minute lighter every day, 1 minute more daylight until the summer solstice. And that's a really good sign. It feels really optimistic. I don't know about you, but you know, people, this point now at end of January, it's often considered to be one of the most miserable times of the year because it's when people have spent up over Christmas, bought lots of, you know, food and gifts and things for family. They're absolutely skint and they're waiting for that pay packet. So it's considered to be the most miserable time of the year. But I think the opposite. I think it feels optimistic because whilst we're still in winter, we know the spring's coming. We're starting to get these signs. So the other day I was walking through a forest and I saw snowdrops. Snowdrops are like this little white flower that appear on the forest floor in between the trees and, you know, all the kind of foliage and stuff. And they just sort of pop up. They end up like that. They go a bit taller. They've got these little white tips, flowers on the top. And they're the first flower that appears after the deep winter. And it's a sign that spring is on the way. Do we need that sign? Well, no, because the seasons are quite predictable, right? Spring always follows winter. It's a bit like what Jim Rohn said, you know, we only get so many springs. We only get so many. If you think how many days we live in our life on average and how many years we have on average, how many springs do we have? Right? Not many. We get a handful of springs at key moments in our life, and you've got to discount a lot of these springs. You discount the springs you have when you're a kid because you're not able to make an impact on the world, and you discount the ones when you're old or retired. So if you think about it, during your working life, how long is that? You only have so many springs, and it's metaphorical that Jim Rohn talks about. We only have so many springs. Take advantage of the spring. You don't get many, and it's almost like fresh starts in life. So even though we have this kind of New Year's resolution thing, it doesn't really kick in until spring, and it's important to realise that firstly that spring is very predictable, right? It comes right after winter every year. If we didn't have the seasons, then the world would end. It's a bit like the moon, you know, with the tide. You know, if that stops, the world would end. I always thought this when I was in multi-disc design consulting. I was doing a lot of energy projects, you know, a lot of, hi, welcome to life, doing a lot of energy projects. You used to get involved in all sorts like nuclear, big infrastructure projects, power projects, wind turbines, all this kind of thing, solar. And the one that I always thought was the best, but it also happened to be the most expensive, was, hey, welcome to the life. So the one that was, I would say, was probably the best or most predictable, but also the most expensive, was any kind of tidal scheme, right? Hey, how are you doing? You're Andy as well. Welcome. So any kind of tidal scheme, anything with the tide, like tidal barrages, right? Because they're so predictable. Now they also happen to cost billions because it's massive infrastructure. You're talking about creating dams now, which are huge projects. But can you predict that? It's a bit like, can you predict the wind? Well, kind of. There's a lot of criticism on wind turbines. Have you seen the stuff with Trump sort of calling them windmills and all that? It's quite funny because they're not that reliable and they cost a fucking fortune and whatever. But I always thought with tidal power, right, this is very predictable. You know, if the moon stopped going around the earth, I think the world would end. There's certain things. So it's a bit like the seasons. These things are predictable. We can count on them, right? So the metaphor that spring always follows winter is we can count on it. But if we translate that into life, yeah, spring feels optimistic. We get a bit more daylight. We start getting more daylight towards summer, to the summer solstice, all that kind of thing. That's great. But in real terms, you could see your life like a set of seasons. It's a bit like when you come across hard times. You know, the winter is a dark time. It's all about survival, right? Historically, you had to survive it. You had to keep warm, you know, like dark times you had to keep warm. You know, if you didn't, you'd die, you know, you'd freeze in the cold. So, you know, we're talking like, you know, a couple of thousand years ago, if you weren't able to keep yourself warm in winter, you'd be dead. But today we have modern things like heating in houses and all the rest of it to keep us warm. So it's not so much of a problem, although the fuel cost is a problem to heat your house. And fuel poverty is a real thing. Horrible. So we have that problem. So winter's about survival, right? Now, whilst we have the actual winter, we also have, in the metaphorical sense, we have other winters in our life, like tough times, right? And one thing you can always say is if you're in deep, dark times, let's say you're in tough times in relationships or financially or something like this, right? Whatever it is, you can almost guarantee that it won't last forever, right? It won't last forever, and generally, spring always follows winter. So the bad times don't last forever, and you've got to wait for the spring. Sometimes, like, we can't avoid the winter, so we have to prepare for the winter. This is why we prepare for bad times. Yes. Where are you in England? Oh, Manchester, North Manchester, actually, precisely. Yeah. So we have to prepare for winter. It's a bit like, what's that kind of old story, fairy tale, you know, about the two mouse, and you had the industrious mouse and the one that was just like, the industrious mouse was like, you know, preparing for bad times and harvesting food and building a nest and all the rest of it. And then the other mouse was just fucking around, just like, you know, eating nuts and whatever, just sort of swanning about. And then the winter came and the industrious mouse was struggling. The one that was fucking around was struggling, and he had to bang on and ask for charity from the industrious mouse that are prepared for the winter, right? And you can find yourself in that situation where if you don't prepare for hard times, then you will get a problem. You have to start reaching out to others, getting help. Fine. So prepare for hard times. But once that winter's done, you've got a spring, and it's like, this is a huge opportunity right now. It feels really good. Like, I like this weather. I love the feeling of spring every year. It's like, I like the winter. I like sitting here, you know, been out here. Some of my live streams have been out here with absolutely freezing cold hands, blankets, still trying to stay warm, all the rest of it. Now it's different. There's a definite change in the weather, and it feels very optimistic, and I'm looking forward to it. Like, yeah, so I've just had let's call it a tough winter, but also even metaphorically, a lot of tough times, like, you know, with new businesses and things like this. And I'm preparing to have, I feel this year being much better. I can just feel it. You know, just had a tough winter, let's put it that way. So I love this time of year. Spring feels amazing. Even though, well, we're actually technically still in winter. Is it? Oh, it's 31st today, so tomorrow, February. At the end of February, I always think December, January and February are winter, obviously, aren't they? And then March, April, May, spring. May's sort of getting warm, isn't it? So it's March, April, May, spring. June, July, August, summer. Right, September, October, November, autumn, or as if they say in America, the fall or whatever. Right. So we have to take advantage of these springs. What can we do? Well, we ought to have been thinking over the Christmas holidays or the break towards the new year, and also if you're doing New Year's resolutions, fine. What are your goals for 2026? When you set goals for a new year, I don't think you should say start 1st of January. I don't think many people like hit it really hard 1st of January. It's like the preparedness or getting set up for 2026 goals, setting them, devising your plan, deciding on what things you're going to work on, all that kind of thing. Like I say, 3 things a day. Do 3 small things a day, focus blocks of time, working towards your goals. You might be doing all the setup, so it's a good time to sort of, like I do with a journal, you know, get yourself a journal. You can set it up early, like what your identity is, what goals you're going to work on in 2026. And then you start, and it might take you a bit of time to really start in anger, but in spring you should be in full flow, working towards whatever you're working towards. That's if it's a new goal. If it's an existing goal, it's like, what are you going to do? So if it's like, you know, a business goal that you've already started last year, what do you do this year? You might be looking at things like how we're going to scale it, and we're going to, you know, now we're out of the winter, can I get more sales? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I reach out to more people? Can I go and meet more people? You know, you can do that. You can go out and meet more people in the spring, whether that be in your business life or in your personal life, like relationships. You know, winter, people don't do much dating, do they? They stay in, and it's all like trying to keep warm and stuff. Now's the time to go out and meet people for all kinds of things, you know, because we have to create relationships and meet people for everything, even our business, our personal life, our health, friends, family, everything. So now is a good time to begin exploring. I feel it. It always reminds me of when I was a kid, right? Where we grew up quite poor, and we had no heating in the house, right? Think about the winter, you know, surviving a winter. We had no heating in the house. I think we had one fire downstairs in the living room, and then the rest of it, like, you know, in your bedroom, you could see your breath, like, just fucking in your bedroom. It were absolutely freezing. It's like, you don't see that now, but that's how it was. Look at this, I've got some prepared he shu wu. I don't know if you've ever seen this stuff. Quite good for like liver health and stuff. It's an ancient Chinese recipe. Comes from some kind of mushroom or something. But yeah, it's got a few benefits. It's one of these kind of, it's in all the biohacking books. So I've started to just You just stir a little bit in your brew. But yeah, when I was a kid, there was no heating in the houses. It was fucking freezing. And I remember like trying to, stay warm, like with my brothers and that, and it was just bloody bitter. And then obviously in the summer, the houses were too hot, because there was no heating and no insulation. But we don't have that problem now. Life is very comfortable, right? Yeah, we have a huge, in the UK, we have massive energy costs, which I think will change. Not now. It'll need a new government to do that. But we've got to bring the energy down. It's just fucking crippling us, right? But yeah, we must survive the winter, and then we must hit our goals for 2026. So I like spring because it feels good. The days get lighter. Like now, it's bright at 8 o'clock in the morning. Only a few weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, it was fucking pitch black, 8 o'clock in the morning. So it feels good already, and it's going to start getting nicer. I like to read and journal. It's an absolute joy when you can sit outside in a t-shirt and shorts at sort of, 9 o'clock in the morning on a weekend, just with a book. It feels fantastic. So we're getting there. There's no blanket, is there? It's a bit warmer. I'm looking forward to it. So, but also, I am starting to, myself, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to hack my way out of a few tight spots, with new businesses and things and all this stuff, all these risks that I've had to take recently. It's like I'm just coming out of that winter, and now's the spring. So go and take the opportunity. Like I say, we don't get many springs, do we? How many do we get? It's like you don't get many opportunities in life. And here's the thing, right? If you have an opportunity, a spring is like an opportunity. A spring is an opportunity to do something different this year. How many of those years where you're actually in a position to do something different, in a position to make a difference, where you can actually make a choice, how many do you think you've got? I bet you've got less than 10 to really make an impact. Because you could say every year, right? Every year you can start making a different choice. But unless you start at some point, you're just going to become so far behind. You know what I mean? It kind of reminds me of my brother. He always says like, "Oh, you're all right, you." Well, I'm not all right at the minute, to be honest. But he said because I've took more big risks and I just feel under pressure again. But I'm coming out of that now, like I said. But he says to me, "Oh, you're all right, you got all this." I said, "Fucking hell, I've been working on it for 2 decades." You know what I mean? I said, "You're 20 years behind you. So how many do you think you've got? If you're in your 20s, I think you got 10 springs to really, really go for it and make an impact. And then you need to be doubling down, like cementing it and doubling down and all the rest of it. So I don't think you've got that many. Obviously, you've got more springs in your life, but how many of them are you in a position where you can really make an impact? Just have a think about that. All right. Right, I'm going to get back to some reading. Go and take advantage of the spring. Set your goals. If you need any help, go and watch some of my other videos on setting goals. Check out the Goal Achievement Hub and the journals if you want one. You can buy one on the website. This has everything in here that I talk about in terms of setting goals and achieving them. What I talk about on my channel is all in the journal. It's cheap. Post worldwide, 23 quid. Or you can hire me as a coach, but I don't want to. This is the thing, right? The reason why I created the journal is because I've had business coach and got a lot of success from it, but it costs a fortune. Not everyone can afford to be coached. Not everyone can be coached because you're taking someone's time up. But everyone can buy a book, right, and just fucking learn. I believe in self-education. You can listen to my videos, other people's videos. All my videos are based on the 3-step system: identity, goals, daily habits. It's as simple as that, right? And you'll get results. Obviously, you have to put in the work, but you will get results if you stick to that. If you change your habits to match your identity, the identity that you want to become, eventually you'll get results. It's just a bloody fact, right? The only reason why you won't get results is if you're not doing what you said you're going to do. And be patient, of course, because things take time. So yeah, you can go and get the journal. We'll go and have a listen to a few other videos, and remember that we only get so many springs to make a difference. Now's one of them. I think now's the time. All right, go and enjoy your day. See you all next time.